Thank you so much. Well, everyone, especially the participants who registered for this talk, Artistic Directors Meetup, uh, Biennales, Contemporary Art, Post-Corona, and most especially to my distinguished guests here who have made their time from different places across the world. Pak Jim Supangkat, Mbak Mbak Melati Suryodarmo, Charles Esche, and Dolorosa Sinaga. We invite them to, actually this is more like a sharing session actually. As you guys know that Jakarta Biennale is postponed until 2021 due to, of course, the situation that everybody in the world is now, well, we're all in this situation together with this pandemic of COVID-19. And it's quite an obvious reason due to lack of capacity, lack of, especially in the case of lockdowns and travel bans everywhere, which affects, especially for our international cooperation with artists and communications as well, affected, scarcity of resources, then we decide to postpone the Biennale to 2021. And we're not alone, actually. Situation has been affecting greatly the art scene internationally, and we're still positive and optimistic to have Jakarta Biennale held in 2021, and we all hope that this crisis will be over soon for everyone. And we're still working, especially with Mbak Dolo as our artistic director, and also the artistic team who has been taking their time to work on their curatorial concept, and actually like this situation also has been contributing greatly for us to rethink about the urgencies in contemporary art practice and how it should contribute or respond to this whole change of the world that we are facing. Okay, so without further ado, so this is more like a talk show, more like a sharing session. So I will allow our guest speakers here to in turn share their perspectives based on their experiences and expertise in their own rights, and also their relation to Jakarta Biennale, being the former artistic directors and former Dolo as the current artistic director of Jakarta Biennale. So I will do it in turn. I will introduce first our speakers here. Pak Jim, I think, is a very, I wouldn't say much about Pak Jim because I think that everybody here knows definitely, like he's been, and welcome Pak Hilmar Farid, our Director General of Culture.
Hi everyone.
Thank you so much for your time, for joining this talk.
Pak Jim, dulu.
Kabar.
Yes. Yes, so good timing. So yes, Pak Hilmar is our from Ministry of Culture, our Director General of Culture. We would like to have a share of your thoughts maybe after the speaker session. So I'm just gonna run through and do a very brief introduction to each speaker. Pak Jim is one of our most well-known pioneer in the field of contemporary art and also curatorship in Indonesia, an art historian, artist, and also was the chief curator or artistic director. It wasn't really popularly used back then, the term, of the Biennale Jakarta '93, which could be regarded as the milestone of the history of Biennales in Jakarta, or in Indonesia actually, of the first approach of using like contemporary art perspective in major exhibitions. And Charles Esche, director of Van Abbe Museum in Eindhoven, curator, and also like editorial board of After All, Contemporary Art Journal, artistic director of Sao Paulo Biennale in 2014, and also the artistic director of Jakarta Biennale 2015. Mbak Melati Suryodarmo, performance artist, just had her amazing solo retrospective at Macan Museum, and was the artistic director of 2017 Jakarta Biennale. And we have Ibu Dolorosa Sinaga, one of our most renowned sculptor in Indonesia, and now with us, the team preparing the Jakarta Biennale 2021. So yes, I can start with Pak Jim first. Again, I'm very honored to have you all here. Thank you so much for your time. We really want to use this moment to learn so much from your perspective. And so, especially for Pak Jim, we would like to invite Pak Jim to share a bit about maybe like what you can share, what's your experience about making the Biennale Jakarta 1993. So we can actually like look back from the past, and if there's something that we can reflect on that, as it's the start of contemporary art practice in entering the public sphere of Indonesian art scene. What were the challenges back then, and how artists respond to it? And then Pak Jim can also share what you think about contemporary art scene now, whether in Indonesia or internationally, and how does COVID-19 brings a new challenge to it. So please, Pak Jim.
Thank you, Farah. So I better start talking about the Biennial 9, I think, Jakarta Biennial 9 in 1993 and 94. It was held in beginning, it started in December and ended in February, I think. It's 2 or 3 months. February in 1994. Thus, you have to say it as Biennial, Jakarta Biennial 1993 and 1994. Now, the Jakarta Biennale 9 was held actually after a long time. Jakarta Biennale was stopped for a long time, not held. So the Jakarta Biennale 9 started then a new episode, so-called episode, after a stop for a long time. Now, the biennial itself, it's very special. When I was asked to organize the exhibition, now of course they already have a frame. It's a Jakarta Biennial and say it a conventional biennial, but I immediately refused to organize with the bargaining position. I will organize the exhibition if the frame is a contemporary art biennial. Of course, there was a discussion because nobody knows what is actually contemporary art at that time. I have to explain, of course, but the Jakarta Art Council agreed, partly actually, without really understand, but it's agreed upon that it will be a contemporary art, and I will invite Indonesian so-called contemporary artists, because the sign of contemporary already emerged at that time. Now, the reason was not directly just to make a new biennial. Now, at that time, in 90s actually, there is a growing effort in Australia and Japan to introduce actually contemporary art within the region, Asian region and Asia Pacific. Now, I think if we see back the development in even in 1993, in the decade of 90s, now the contemporary art outside Western Europe and America is not known. So it's still a phenomena of European phenomenon and American phenomenon. Now it was Japan and Australia who actually introduced the development of contemporary art in other regions, and it was in 2000. In the decade of 2000, the world was aware there were contemporary art development outside the Western Europe and America. And in 2000, they started to talk about world contemporary art, not anymore just Europe and America. Now, it was that sense that there was a spirit in Japan and Australia to introduce the contemporary art in Asia and Asia Pacific. Meanwhile, actually, the contemporary art was not informed at that time. Nobody in the region actually know what is actually contemporary art. It's still difficult to understand it. But based on the discussion in some kind of 3 years after, I understand a bit what is actually contemporary art. That's why I want to introduce it, because actually there are already artists who work, who make works already could considered as a contemporary work. And if we go back now in 1970s with the Gerakan Seni Rupa Baru, you can already see some kind of a proto-contemporary art. That's the spirit of against modernism, those kind of things, you know. And I think there is facts enough that contemporary art is emerging in Indonesia. That's why I organized the Biennale, and it was agreed upon it will be a contemporary art, and was participated by all Indonesian contemporary art artists. Of course, with our vision about contemporary art. It's not completely similar with the contemporary art developed in Europe and America. But for example, I include photography and still a realistic painting in the biennial. Meanwhile, actually, contemporary art at that time already developed into some kind of an installation work. Now, this is then the basic ideas that I want to introduce. The idea is I want to introduce contemporary Indonesian artists who actually at that time already participated in some kind of international exhibition outside Indonesia. Heridono is already known in Australia and Japan, started already talking about him. And again, for Dadang Kristanto, for example, artists like that is already known outside Indonesia, but not known in Indonesia. So this is a good idea to organize a contemporary biennial in inviting all Indonesian contemporary artists to present. This is the contemporary art in Indonesia. Now, I try to find reasons why, what actually. At that time already, I want to adjust what is actually contemporary art in Indonesia, and not just only aping. Now this is rude, of course. Not just imitating contemporary art outside Indonesia from the Western world. That's why in the introduction, curatorial introduction, I use the thoughts, I suddenly forgot the name, the thoughts about radical avant-garde, that trying to introduce that the contemporary art has its basis in emerging in Indonesia since seni rupa baru. The radical avant-garde, it's not just imitating the contemporary art in Europe and America, but it has its own basis. But despite of these efforts, I have to admit, I have to say that the contemporary art exhibition and the contemporary work and the existence, the emergence of contemporary art was refused in Indonesia totally. It was not just, it's not just the formal institution. So because most of the contemporary work, they are a little bit rude. It's not talking about beauty or those kind of things. They are talking about the social issues, like Samsar Siaan made a very thoughtful work in the place where it was an exhibition hall, abandoned exhibition hall. So it's not just the official who are refused the exhibition. It was also the officials in Jakarta art councils, for example. So they started to refuse the works, and generally the artist itself, and even there were artists participating the biennial, that started to make a different kind of voice. That's why the biennial became very controversial. Andar Manik wrote in one of the walls in Samsar Siaan work. It was I forgot. It was outside the gravity of postmodern and those kind of things. You know, no, because coincidentally at that time there was a polemic in Kompas Daily about postmodernism because of radical thoughts against the modernism and all the past, like Fukuyama said, it's against history. It's all history, those kind of things. Of course, the official philosophers in Indonesia, official people who loved philosophy, were against the postmodernism. And through their statement, it was connected the Jakarta Biennale, who showed a contemporary art with the postmodernism, those kind of things. Now, in total, Jakarta Biennale in 1993, I think it was a clear conclusion for me, the contemporary art was refused. So that's why, because it was rejected by the artwork, I have to say that if people say that the contemporary art emerged in 1993 through this biennial, I have to refuse it. I have to say that contemporary art is not yet existed in 1993. There are artists who practice the conception, but if you consider the artwork, it's not yet existed. So I have made my statement abroad at that time in nearly in decade 90 decade that contemporary artworks developed what you say that in excellence. Now most of the early contemporary artists, they are known and they show their work outside Indonesia. And it was refused in Indonesia. Now, at that time, in 90s, the most of the work in Indonesia are still the dominant trend was the beautiful work. Now, because in 1990 there was habits among the government people. Now they give work of art to some kind of a bribery. So it's very common. That's why in most exhibitions, it's always the minister or director general or whoever, or people from the official world who opened the exhibition. Now this is then the condition, and at the end I was very upset actually, because of my curatorial introduction is talking about the radical avant-garde was refused in the academic area in Bandung. Now, actually, most of the people in Bandung, they had the most information about art development, and actually they can talk about. Now, it was the idea of Charles Jenks. I forgot the name. It was Charles Jenks' thoughts about the radical avant-garde. Now, it's not the same with the avant-garde in Europe and America. It's not avant-gardism of modernism. It's an avant-garde that naturally came out against something. Now, against the imitating of modernism and those kind of things, you know. But that's why I think that in 1993, the biennial, Jakarta Biennale was a failure, totally failure. There is no impact at all. Now this is so you can talk about it historically with something, but at that time, now the Jakarta Biennale is it's a totally, what is it? It's refused. I was accused 3 months, more than 3 months in media and amateur radio. It will be called issue, and they accused the postmodernism and they accused the biennial, and they accused me as an anarchist. Those kind of things that will be I don't know what is the term, merusak the beautiful art development of Indonesia. Those kind of things, you know. Now this is then my experience of the Jakarta Biennale contemporary art. Now, talking about contemporary art, now it's interesting phenomenon. Now, because of a contemporary art, of course, emerged in United States and Europe, something against the all thoughts developed before about the grand narration, about the history, about the supremacy of science, that objectivity, those kind of things. Now, like I said, talking about Fukuyama, it's against history, all of the history. This is then the problem in Europe and United States and America. Now, if you're talking about the contemporary art outside outside Europe and America, so it's absurd talking about suddenly there are people who talk against the modernism, against the history, and against all of those things. Now, most of the people outside Europe and America, they don't even know what is actually history, what is actually the Western history, and what is domination, what is hegemony, those kind of things, you know. And like I've tried in Jakarta Biennale, there should be another reason. It's not just because of postmodernism. There must be another reason. But this is then the development of a contemporary art. Now, talking about there was a radical change in contemporary art, but if you see the pattern of development, it's just the same with the earlier development. It's the modern art development is just the same. The initiative always came in Europe and America, and the whole world just following the development, the idioms, the principle, the concept, those kind of things. So this is a question because of there is different kind of social condition, development condition, and suddenly you came into a similar conclusion. For me, it's a little bit strange. It's a little bit strange. No, and then the latest development, if you talk about the word art, it's not talking about word art anymore. Now you talk about global art at this time. And then in global art, you can see that the similarity became more more apparent. More apparent. I don't know after this COVID-19, probably there will be another attitude. But the similarity or the homogeneous condition became more than the condition in modern art, modern times. Now there was illusion about homogeneity in the modern world, but in the global world it became reality. Everybody acknowledged it. Now and then I think that in short, if we talk about demography, global demography, it's actually now in the beginning there is a worry. There was a worry. Now the information came from the Western world to the southern world. So, and then there will be global youth culture. The millennial generation will be similar in all of the world. So there will be there was a worry. There will be mass migration from south to the Western world. Now it didn't happen, and it didn't happen. And you can see the information became a phenomenon in all of the world. Now in Indonesia, using handphone and using this kind of technology became known by all of the people. Now, but you can see that the population in the Western world, because lowering now in Europe what you call it, the population growth already become minus. No, and then you have the majority of the global world, the demography is actually the southern people, who you can say that developing people, those kind of things, you know. So, in my opinion, this is my last conclusion. This is probably for further discussion. Considering the demography, the global demography is actually the globality. So you can call it the globality growth actually not in the monoculture condition. Now, if we have been developed in a monoculture development nowadays, thinking, cultural background, homogeneity, thoughts, and those kind of things. Now, the global world is growing actually in a multicultural condition, the South. The South. This is then actually, you have multicultural development, you have many cultures, you have a diversity, you have probably it's too root, it's not very developed thinking, those kind of things, you know. But I think in all of the biennials considered as representing the global world, they are showing actually the development of not the whole cultural world. It's just the development of contemporary art. It's very special. It's contemporary art, reflecting actually not, I think, in my opinion, not the global world, not the multicultural. You have a term. It's not habit. It's
behavior.
Condition. Multicultural condition and habitat. The word bahasa Indonesia is habitat.
Apa?
What is it? Habitat.
Habitus.
You probably that's probably the habitus. That the global world nowadays is growing more in habitus, multicultural habitus. So actually, this habitus character should emerge actually in global contemporary biennial, but it's not. It's only talking about the social problem, all of those things, you know. It's very common. Human rights, those kind of things that showing that most of the world outside Europe and America is underdeveloped. So you should help them, those kind of things. it's not the character of the people. It's not the character of the multicultural habitus. Now, this is my critical view on, in general, contemporary art. So the word contemporary art nowadays, they're talking about the global contemporary art and the global issues. And of course, I have to, as my last opinion, you can completely see in how the idiom was used. It's totally contemporary, global contemporary art. For me, it's just model apa ya? It's a trend. And now I'm just curious: is it related to the what is the real expression, the vision, the aim of the artist to represent their reality or their work into the works? Probably this is just, of course, this is my opinion. This is some kind of offering to the next Jakarta Biennale to consider. Okay, this is my opinion, Farah.
Thank you, Pak Jim. Thanks so much. Quite a provocative start from Pak Jim, as expected.
As always.
Okay, we can move on to Charles. So Charles has built really quite close relationships with the Indonesian art scene, and that's also that's why part of the reason why he engaged as artistic director of Jakarta Biennale 2015. So we can really expect from Charles to share. Well, first, maybe you can share a brief outlook on what's happening in the international art scene with this COVID-19 situation, something that maybe we need to be enlightened, and a bit of reflections on your experience working with the JB 2015. How does you think contemporary art contribute to the city? And I think it's good to compare also with what Jim has told us the story of '93, and also maybe your recommendations of Jakarta Biennale and ahead, and also the contemporary art practice in Indonesia. Okay.
Okay, thanks a lot, Farah, and thanks a lot, Pak Jim. That was really interesting, and I think I agree with a huge amount of what you say, particularly around the 90s. You set this up rather patriarchal way here, where the men go first and the women go second, Farah. So I feel a bit embarrassed about that, I have to say.
Really? No, it's just because then I saved the best for last.
Okay, that's fantastic. Now I feel saying that. I feel a bit more relaxed.
It's gentlemen first now. Yes.
Very good.
Please do.
The weaker gender first is good. No.
Talk about that later.
I think it would be what you asked is about the sort of the international situation, and I think I've obviously been thinking about this quite a lot, and indeed this situation of lockdown gives you time to reflect and think, which often we haven't had over the last few years, at least in positions where we've been busy producing. And I think that's one consequence of this virus is that there's been, at least to some degree, some rethinking of where we are and our relationship, particularly, I think, to the forms of cultural globalization, which we've seen happen in the last 30 years. And I think Jim is right to say that this process in the early 90s, which also, of course, coincides more or less with the end of the Cold War in Europe and the end of communism as a meaningful ideology, that at that point, this world opened to what we called globalization. But I think looking back over these 30 years, we see that globalization, and culture is very much part of it. Yeah? So politics, economics, and culture really go almost in lockstep together in growing and expanding their influence across the world. But they're expanding and they're growing their influence from Euro-America, from this very particular location. So in a sense, there's little difference in that process of globalization to old forms of European imperialism, going back to Columbus. Yeah, that it's reproducing very much the patterns and the trades. And I think this is where Jim is absolutely right to say that contemporary art becomes something that there's a huge contribution, I think, from Southeast Asia, from Indonesia, from other parts of the world, but it becomes something that is controlled, particularly in its economic aspects of market and things like that, once again by Euro-America. So this problem that we have of the imbalance in the world and the claiming always of the originary move, the first mover, the prime mover, being Euro-America in the world, is a kind of self-definitional one, yeah? Because if everything that happens in Europe is significant and original, and everything that happens outside is a copy or a derivation, then only the things which happen in Europe can have any meaning and can be original, because everything else will be dismissed. Yeah, so the value systems, and I think Jim pointed this out nicely with the idea that both through demographic change, but also the huge ancient multicultural situations in, for instance, Southeast Asia, which go back millennia, this idea of multiculturalism, that's simply ignored in a sense that Europe now, after 1989, in a sense discovered its own multiculturalism and then said it invented it, and then claimed it, and ignored any other examples of it because it had to be the originary point of all these arguments. So I think that we see then globalization really much more as a continuity of a kind of hegemony, and then we come to the cultural field, also in the cultural field, of this Euro-American position. And what's COVID-19 doing? I think it's accelerated trends which are already happening and were already happening before. I think that the model, which we could call modernity in a sense, this is the model that Euro-America brought to the world. They called it modernity, and they said it was inevitable, and they said it was something that was connected to progress and to improvement and to betterment and all that. But that's all just to a large extent rhetoric. Obviously, there are elements of that in it because they could not be. But largely, it's an argument which is done in order to separate the bad side, the negative sides of colonialism, from what are deemed to be the positive sides, which are technological improvements and things like that. So in this process, I think we are able, COVID-19 is really sort of accelerating the change away from that Euro-American world. Now, I don't know how long this will take, but I think it's clear that there's a rebalancing. On the political field, clearly a rebalance, but also I think on the cultural and the economic fields, there are rebalancings going on. And I think these are positive rebalancings, but they will be hard, and particularly, as a Westerner, it means giving up all those hegemonic positions which you presumed, when I was growing up, presumed to be your right, simply as being white and being Western. And that is, of course, a huge threat. And there's still a lot of power in the West, and that's what we see, I think, in the political field, to try and reclaim them, a kind of desperation not to lose the power and the influence, which was presumed to be simply the birthright of the Western subject. And in that process, I think we're going to have a lot of difficulties. But that's more on the political side. On the cultural side, what I see is that we can maybe use this time and also the time after to think about and come to terms with the consequences of this globalization, or in a way neo-imperialism, which we've been going through for the last 30 years. And I think what we see of it on one level, it's not really in the interest so much of the nation states, of the old imperial powers, so the Netherlands or Britain or whatever, or France, but more in the interest of the corporations and of what we call the 0.1% or whatever, the super rich, who are in control of the corporations. That largely it's been in their interest rather than in a nation state. So the nation states are following more so the corporation and corporation models. So that's a shift in it. That's one thing that's interesting, because then the power, in a sense, is no longer geographically located so much, but it's located within the corporate headquarters and their tentacles throughout the whole world. I think one of the consequences of globalization, and that form of globalization, is that there has been, certainly in the West, but I think everywhere, a sort of increase and recognition of diversity. I think this is where the multiculturalism comes in that Jim mentions. There's been a huge increase in our understandings of diversity, the value of diversity, but also literally the diversity. So, in a little town like Eindhoven, where I work, even in the last 20 years, the diversity quotient, if you like, has gone from almost zero to relatively high. Because it's quite a technical city, there have been many people coming in from China, from India, from Indonesia as well, working in the research labs, because the factories are elsewhere, but working in the research labs and creating a kind of diverse community out of one that was essentially farmers from the immediate neighborhood 30 years ago. So that shift in the identities of the cities has been a consequence of the last 30 years. So a lot of the Western political forces, and to some extent cultural forces as well, that want to shift back to a kind of modernist position, would need to eliminate those changes of the last 30 years, at least politically. And I don't think that's possible. So although we have a huge problem with the far right in places like the Netherlands, a horrific problem, kind of, modernist fundamentalism, I would call it, much like other kinds of fundamentalism, in the sense of going back to some sort of original idea of what modernity was. And modernity was Western hegemony and imperialism and everything connected to that. That I don't think there's really a possibility, because at least in the last 30 years, if not in the last 300 years, this diversity and the situation in the places in the world has changed. So that's one, I think, consequence of globalization that has been positive and that we need to retain and that we will retain. The other one, I think, that has been, maybe 50% positive, 50% negative, has been the huge, or not negative, but it's had difficult consequences, has been the huge spread in access to information that we've had, particularly through the technology. So even technologies like this, that allow us to talk to each other. This even wouldn't have been possible very few years ago. I don't think in the Jakarta Biennale 2015 we could do this very well. It was always breaking down, but now it's much more stable. So that spread of information has also been at the expense of what I would like to call, or what other people also call, learning, I suppose. A sort of understanding of the world based on experience has been replaced by an acquisition of information. And I think that this COVID and the consequences of it might return us to thinking about what learning is in relationship to education. Because what this globalization has been about, to a large extent, in the benefit of this small group of people across the world, and not only in Western Europe and North America, but largely based there. That has been a kind of instrumentalization of so many of the resources that were previously seen to obey, if you like, other rules than the economic rules. So nature, we see in this coronavirus, in this COVID crisis, you see the exploitation of nature, and this being one of the results of it. But we already knew, behind this virus are hiding the fires in Australia and the huge debts in the West and in the United States, which were the problems before the virus and are still the problems. They're not going away. But nevertheless, I think that there's a way in which this instrumentalization of nature, of culture, and of art, I think as well, through this idea of contemporary art being something that can spread thinly across the whole world and sort of justify an idea of a positive globalization under which other things happen. But the instrumentalization of resources in general, so human resources and knowledge resources, everything sort of instrumentalized in the service of profit, in the service of a single aim, which is a positive bottom line for the corporations, and at best the most positive bottom line possible. That I think, if COVID is, and it's a great tragedy, of course, many people are dying, and we mustn't forget that. But if it's going to have a positive effect, it will cause us to stop and think a little bit. And I suppose this stopping and thinking might lead, what I'm hopeful of is that we might no longer try and do these sort of exhibitions which are kind of generalized version of internationalism, of globalism, of exactly bringing together things that look the same from all over the world and saying, can't we celebrate our commonalities? But actually underneath that celebration of commonalities are the huge inequalities that we know and already exist. Can we instead think about going deeper in our individual relationships between places? Because one of the changes that might happen, one of the negative changes, but I think one of the changes that will happen, that we have to struggle against, will be a sort of return to localism as a result of COVID. Our geographies and our sense of time and of space will become different after COVID, I think. It won't be so easy to travel. It won't be so easy to make these bridges, except through these technologies, that we have almost taken for granted within the art field. Yeah, many people, of course, can't travel, but for those of us that can, like me, it's almost been taken for granted. And I think that will reduce. As a consequence of that, one of the dangers might be that we turn to the local. Now, there's a lot more diversity in the local, as I said. So I think that that diversity in the local is something we can take account of. And certainly in Eindhoven, it becomes vital that diversity exists now for us. But at the same time, I think we need to maintain relationships across the world. But maybe those relationships are no longer, in a way, I would say they're no longer maintained by this structure called contemporary art, in which we're all contributing. Maybe we need to find other reasons why we want to talk to each other than that we're all making contemporary art. Maybe those are to do with having common interests, common relationships to resources, common relationships to human relations, and actually finding, and I think, this is where I would say, the relationship between the Netherlands and Indonesia are very problematic and a very fraught one, absolutely, throughout history. But actually, because we've had this awful and exploitative relationship, we're also quite close to each other. And in a certain sense, I think that the specific relations between Indonesia and the Netherlands, at least from my point of view, because I'm coming from the Netherlands, I think that could be an interesting one. I understand for you that that's less interesting because you've had all the burdens of the Dutch and not much of the benefits for many times. But maybe this location of common interests and trying to identify common interests at first, and then from those common interests, building cultural programs, building commissioning work, asking artists to show us in the ways that only they can, the intimate relations between human to human, the intimate relations between humans and subjects, things that seem to be abstract. A lot of the things that I've talked about feel very abstract. An artist makes them concrete. Yeah, I can't do that. An artist makes them concrete, makes them felt, makes them emotional, makes them real. And I think in that process, I think almost bilateral or at least relationships that try to excavate deeper relations than simply the umbrella of contemporary art, I think might be useful. We might even need to lose the umbrella of contemporary art at the moment. And I really appreciate Jim's understanding of how contemporary art developed in the 90s. And it's absolutely at this time when the Cold War ends and globalization, neo-imperialism really gathers pace. But we're 30 years on now, and maybe we don't need it anymore. Maybe actually we need to find other kinds of relations which we build, rather than this sort of, a little bit self-satisfied world of contemporary art. No? And so I think that's a challenge for me. And then I think in relation to the Biennale, because I'm going on too long, I realize. And I mean, Jakarta Biennale 2015 feels like another world almost now. I have to say, I think that for me, the most important thing that we did there was the program called the Curators Lab, and then the working with the young curators. Some of whom have become really close friends. Some of them are here actually. That for me has been was a very important learning process for me. I hope it was also for them, but it was very important for me to actually, in a sense, build those bilateral relationships between me and that young group of curators, who were all very promising. And I think that also that diversity that you talk about in Indonesia, that diversity which goes back thousands of years, that's something which in the art world could be better expressed. I mean, the whole of the east of Indonesia, whether you talk about Sulawesi or Flores or Papua, needs to have a space in the Javanese art scene in a certain sense. Needs to come into it. And I think that for me, having Putra from Aceh or having Jimpe from Makassar was very important in that exhibition to understanding as a novice really those diversities, but also bringing artists in from those areas. And I think when we had the work coming from Aceh, for instance, then you saw a different kind of energy in that work. I don't know how it's going now, because I know it's not easy to be an artist in Banda Aceh. But nevertheless, the energies that in a sense, this idea of a sort of multiculturalism which grounds a global society, as Jim was talking about, that was really evident in bringing these people from Aceh to Jakarta and allowing their work to be seen, and to some extent not to be understood, to be seen to be outrageous, to be a kind of radical avant-garde in a certain sense, yeah, not necessarily in a formal way, but in terms of what they were saying and the messages that they were bringing from that kind of diversity, which is a kind of local diversity, is also something we need to explore in the Netherlands, and then we need to see how, in a complex way, we can meet, and I'm not sure that can be done at the old global level. I'm not sure that can be done at this idea of, we're all in contemporary art together, or this is all about art. I think in a way, art, particularly through the market and through in the West, I think most people associate art. It's interesting. I think in the 70s or 60s, art was a kind of weird thing that strange people did because they maybe couldn't do anything else. But also that it was sort of tolerated as a part of society that was not necessarily commercial or productive, but that it allowed a certain kind of expression, and that some of that might be of value. What happened in the period after the 90s was the intense commercialization of that, also as an image. So art is seen as being like a yacht or an expensive car, as a plaything of that 1% or 0.1% of people. It's seen by the majority of people, say, in Eindhoven, as being something very distant from them in a certain sense, because it's in the ownership and the playground of those people who they cannot access to. They might aspire to want to be them. They're not necessarily against them, but they can't access it. And I think that's been a tragedy for public institutions like ours, who are trying to say that art is not only representative of your wealth and your ability to acquire and your position in the world and your authority, but it's also something which is about an emotional connection between humans, regardless of who they are. An emotional connection which is meaningful and can build empathy rather than alienation, which is what it does build. Because, you know, Damien Hirst makes you feel inadequate as a working class kid in a certain sense, yeah. But actually, art should not make you feel inadequate. It should make you feel in touch with other people and other kinds of thought and other kinds of vision of what the world might be. And I think we need to rebuild those things. And maybe COVID, in a strange way, will help that process from happening. So I suppose my advice to the Jakarta Biennale is to think about that diversity both internally and build from there to see what conversations need to happen with other places in the world that make sense from the diversity of Jakarta and the huge diversity of Indonesia. I mean, in a way, you've got enough there to do everything.
Okay. Okay, Charles. Hello. Oh yeah. Okay. Thanks so much, Charles. Shall we move on to Mbak Melati? Maybe can unmute. Yeah, Mbak. So Mbak Melati, we can invite Mbak Melati to share. Can also respond to what Pak Jim and let's make it like, you know, like a dialogue in a way. Can also respond to what Pak Jim and Charles have been sharing. But we invite Mbak Melati, especially like she was our last artistic director in 2017, and actually like it's quite an interesting, it's quite a unique offer at that time as her position as an artist, but also then being in charge as an artistic director for the Jakarta Biennale. And so can share also about like probably like your perspective and in both positions, or also share about what are the artists' expectations in future biennales, or how artists are coping amidst the situation, and also probably, I don't know, maybe you can share more about your insight about contemporary art practice in the this new normal era. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think it was, of course, it was a challenge for me as an artist and appointed to become an artistic director, and have to be responsible for such a big project, working with a lot of people, preparing a very special, I think, case that Jakarta Biennale 2017 has invented. But I wasn't alone, of course. I was with another 4 curators, and I was working with Adi Darmawan as an artistic director, as an executive director, and with Farid and all other friends people who become friends also. We've been in touch until now. For me, I think it was a most important part of the Jakarta Biennale 2017 that we offer a kind of a framework that is very simple, actually. We were talking about jiwa. We were talking about the spirit that one has in a life, the soul, the essence, the substance of a life. But also in the context of the contemporary art, we were adapting this jiwa philosophy to be more related with identity, history, and what is moving. So I think discussing about the contemporaneity is always must have been in touch with our surroundings now. But to talk about now, we cannot be separated, of course, from the history. Of course, the issue, the globalization issue. But now we are more in the. I think we are already. Maybe in the last decade, we have been living in the effect of the globalization. You know, like when in the early 1990s, we were facing the big change after the perestroika, which ends in 1989. Then we have a lot of new issues that was for me also a new life when I was migrating to Europe. That there were new issues that we are dealing more with environment. We become more, you know, like friendly to our ex-social, like ex-East friends, and this kind of thing also changed the aesthetic of the contemporary art practice. But probably Charles also same generation with me, or maybe like in the 90s we have in Europe like a kind of a new aesthetic that is not much spoken until now. I think it's not because it was also not easy for the artist to move on because of the social political environment, I guess. Jakarta Biennale 2017 was trying to think or to rethink about not who we are, but what have we done, what we are doing now, and what happened, what has the environment, socio-political and economical environment impact our practice and that's why also our contributions and artists to the world. And I think the selections was not really about multicultural, but nevertheless we consider also the we are very often trapped to be international, to be to present something that international is something that is becoming like a regular standard or value of a representation of a biennale. But we were really like seeking for artists who has been continuously working contemporary or representing their time. So how do they live with their time and their life? So we could not avoid to make a reflection, to search for what has happened, for example, in Indonesia during the early New Order, where there's a totally difficulty to track back what has happened before. There were lack of evidence, and it's been very difficult to search and to represent history per se. But influences always carried on, of course. And so in some artists we have presented like Semsar, whose work was very important also in the former Jakarta Biennale, to be presented again. And many young people did not really have a clue about who was Semsar. And Semsar's work was very important for Indonesian movement, for Indonesia in that time, in the 90s. And so Jakarta Biennale that time was considering like to present part of the history in the Indonesian contemporary art. It is also an act to how do you say in English, for a resistance against the dominations toward the dominations of aesthetic, the domination of what has happened during the globalization too, because why now? I think also like the recent Singapore Biennale and also some events, international events in Southeast Asia, like keen to strengthen the regional resource. So I think it's been started with Pak Jim's Biennale. I think, and something that is now, as we are in the effect of the globalization, we don't think anymore about how to move together, but we are in it. The young generation, the millennial generation, they're very, I think they have a different kind of thinking, different way, or entering a different kind of thinking culture. And I'm trying to update. Maybe I'm a little bit slow now, but I always try to update. Well, for example, what would my daughter think? Or recently, young students from the Indonesian Art Institute here in Solo, in my hometown, asked me, "Mbak Melati, what is it being leftist?" You know, so many questions. Yeah, but yeah, no, I mean, like, young people ask, you know, what is it socialism? What is it activism? You know, this kind of thing. And then I was, oh, interesting. So because in the art school they maybe except IKJ, Jakarta Art Institute, other art school did not really introduce also the political like knowledge a little bit. Of political knowledge in the art school, so which is probably a little bit impossible. And I think to face the contemporary situation by creating a Jakarta Biennale is to serve the public with a platform of idea, a platform of thinking, a platform of opportunities, spaces that people interact and interact with the situation now, and reflect to the history or to our lives. And as an artist, I can probably only work from bottom up, because you know I have to create something from nothing very often, and I want to create something from what I have. So from the bottom up mechanism also was my idea during the Jakarta Biennale. That means as an artist, I also need to learn how to serve others, how to serve the other artists, how to serve other co-creators, how to serve the idea, you know, like the agreed idea. It was quite intense the whole year, and but it was at the end becoming like a big pleasure with all the 51 artists we have represented during the Jakarta Biennale. Anyway, I'm not sure about the terms of new normal, because you know then what is it now being normal? You know, like morally normal, or is it going to be physically normal? So, but you know, as long as we are dealing with lives, we cannot be, you know, like valued with a certain standard of normality. And what happened after the COVID-19, after this pandemic, probably not much, except probably the economical recession and political change, but not much. What I was thinking probably that happened much will be that Maybe not about no, because I'm in Solo, in a small town in Java, with a different reality than probably what that has been going viral on the internet about. Yeah, we are going to have a clear environment. People will respect each other and this kind of thing. But I think in Solo, not much change. People still. Yeah, they don't go out much, but they still throw the rubbish in the house, in behind the house. And it's not the system that has been changed much. So it's be just sneaking. Many people are still sneaking, going out and doing something. So. And if we are in touch with the internet, with the social media, we are attacked by all these virals, yeah, or like including what we are doing now is interesting, but we've been like overloaded with the visual information through the internet, but also now even more. So I'm also questioning like the what is it, the online presentations, online exhibitions, online performance, and this kind of thing. I was thinking, wow, I feel even more tired than normally.
Do you think that the situation actually only affects, somehow more especially affects the urban environment then? I mean, like with your position now, like in Solo, and how do you see that?
Yeah, I've been in touch a lot with my artist fellows in Solo. The biggest effect for them is the economy, because the dancers cannot dance, cannot perform. The musicians cannot play their music. Like a theater and all concerts, all the artistic events are cancelled. So what I've seen now is that people are, my friends are, we are helping each other, like really like buying sack of rice and then delivering it in the kitchen and this kind of thing. This is a big thing, but normally we have done it also before. Sometimes we we collect also donations for our friends who were in the difficulties. So there is not much change of the social life, because we have been also living like that. And probably probably like a city like Jakarta, probably they have been also in personal distance anyway between each other. So to do a kind of a social action probably is kind of like an effort. Whilst for us in Solo, it's not a big effort. We have been living like this. So I think it depends where you are. It depends how you see yourself, where you sit down now. It depends where what you are doing. But I think the pandemic is something that is reminding us to of course, to other people and to our practice. And I cannot, for example, during the pandemic, the staying at home, it's very hard for me to work, although I've been working always from my studio and for so much time. And I felt like, okay, slowly I give up a little bit. I don't have to force myself. So I think that many people, or many of my friends, they also realize that, okay, we don't force. Let us just like this now, relax, thinking probably, and doing something that hasn't been done. But I don't think something much changed after the pandemic. Even, for example, for the Jakarta Biennale that is affected, including my solo exhibition, which is now temporarily closed until when, I also still don't know. We still don't know but probably it's good also to have some delay. It's good to have something postponed. It's good to have something, to restart again slow and see. And now probably, for people who have lived their life, probably they know about this. But those people who are living in a very hard routine and depending on day by day life, it's a situation, but it will get better. We have to think positively. We have to think that like anything that has this is like a kind of a cathartic, probably psychologically seen that we or spiritually seen that we are in the time of the catharsis. That means time for clearing, time for rethinking about everything. Even we talk about intellectual matters, what are we reflecting from what we are talking? I think it's very important, and to be connected with the people through a biennale, for example. Be connected with the people, because art is made for people, by people, for people. I think it's not something that it's different. It's a different platform than, for example, the art markets. Of course, it has to be something different than those who are presented in the art market, and not to ignore the art market, but I think it's time. It's an opportunity to offer some. I don't know if it's called a movement, but something that is giving some pencerahan itu apa? What is pencerahan? Is enlightenment? Yeah, something like
enlightened.
Yeah, and so something that is new, or something that is awakened, something that is like inspiring, of course, the people in many senses. Making a biennale is very heavy in that terms, because we don't serve art for artists only. We serve art. We serve people. We serve unpredictable public. Even like Venice Biennale. Who is going to Venice Biennale? Like even like those people who are not dealing with art. Many of them, most of the visitors, probably not from the art scene. And Documenta as well. Documenta, like in Germany, people like teachers, kindergarten teachers in a group, they go to see the Documenta. Common people, just not like average people, they go to Documenta to see something, they expect something. So to fulfill the expectations of the people is very heavy and is almost impossible. But probably to be close with the people and to get inspired by the people to run a biennale, and probably that would be helpful to connect with the people through representing what so-called contemporary artworks. And so, yeah, I think the new normal is a big question. Do we want to be
normal for who? New normal for
who? Normal for who? Am I normal? Even my daughter sometimes says, "Mama, you're not normal." So like even what in the art context, what is a normal art work? What is it? But normality, probably, probably normality has something to do with moral values, cultural values. But it's everything changed, and if you expect something will go like after the COVID-19, then if you expect something will go back normal like before, I doubt, I doubt, because things change anyway. We just have some delay a little bit. It's nothing. It's 3 months comparing to 50 years is nothing. It's a good time. It's a good time to redeem, and even it costs a lot of effect, or like economically between China and US and so on, and what happened in Indonesia. We always think too much global. We always think too much, sometimes too big. But sometimes we lack of our attention to our nearer environment. And then that's the reality. That's the reality of what we are facing. Like the street in Solo is the reflections of the reality in Indonesia. The people during the pandemic, they're not wearing masks, and this kind of thing is sad. But it's hard to change because of it's hard to change immense number of people to become, change immediately. It's very hard. So, we're slowly entering the pandemic situation. We also will slow get up again. So that's a natural. I think that's very natural. Yeah. Don't get panic.
Yeah.
It's very important. Anyway, I'm talking, like very personal this time.
Oh. That's what we expect from you.
I think that's for me.
Oke, Mbak. Thank you so much. Ini ada pesan dari Bapak Dirjen. Sorry, there's a message from our Dirjen, Pak Hilmar. So, okay, I'm gonna share his message later. But he has to run because of another meeting. Okay, Mbak Dolo, let's sikat. Again, you can also make it like if you want to respond to the previous speakers.
Okay, can you hear me all?
Yes.
Hi. Yeah. Thank you all for your thoughts. Hi, Charles. Haven't seen you for a long time. No, no news. Okay. I'm going to make my presentation is very short because we are a very limited time. First is let me refers to Farah. Farah, I guess, been branding Jakarta Biennale 2020 with the theme Aesop, and the explanation of Aesop is to build our history together. Okay, why history for me is important? Now, before I come to that, my big question is talking about history of international art event or art institution, international art institution like Biennale. I ask myself whether this event has been in the past noted by people as a very important history that changed the world. Is there any radical Biennale that can be said to be able to influence the practice of the power relationship? Now, I will start my vision from the history. First, if we, my reading is in global history to talk about, to make the relationship to the Art Biennale in global history, I see that perpetrators, all the nation, either they are once is perpetrators or victims of human rights violation. Okay. Now the second, that's the first notion that we have to bear. The second is nowadays we are all is facing the same history. We are all living in the same boat, that because of COVID-19. Now, my vision of the Biennale 2021 is, I think art activism is now for us to formulate together. And why? Because I want to see that this action would be able to influence toward discernible end of power relationship. Now, based on that, of course, to build the history together, the foundation is human rights. We need to build our history together to face the global issues, from the environmental well-being, something to the poverty. If we listen carefully, closely to what is happening now of the COVID-19, you can see all the powerful nation is debating on how to get rid of this disease, and they're like, what you may call it, you know, finding the vaccine, and somehow the vaccine create the source of capital. So I don't think I'd like to follow that much. I think what I read is we need to build up a new relationship between a global nation. So I wanted to have, I wanted the Biennale 2021 to contribute. The Indonesian has to be able to contribute and give a work that is not repeating, like, you know, art practicing in contemporary art, but it's in activism. The foundation is activism. And the second one, apart from the activism, I wanted some work will be concentrated in a creation that based on archive. That would be a knowledge that we all will look for the past history that makes us more having a consciousness and a new awakening to build the history together globally. Art and activism is something, it's not easy to formulate, but to make it easier, probably we have to have a knowledge, a very intact knowledge of art, what is art and what is activism. There are many ways of doing activism, like Melati is doing activism already in the COVID-19, or maybe before that her community is already action, helping others, and you know, give them things that they need. that there are many ways of doing activism and being an activist, but there is always a ground of a common element, which is an activity targeted toward a discernible end. And this is my aim. Simply saying that the goal of activism actually is an action to create a fact that would influence the practice of power relationship. That is the foundation of Curatorial 2021, Biennale 2021. And basically, this foundation is I call curatorial activism. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mbak Dolo. And actually, thanks everyone. Also my very honorable 4 speakers here. So we're close to 4. So we only have 30 minutes left actually for Q&A, and also there are some we gather some questions from the online registration forms, but I still want also to open the floor for the forum just later. There's a lot of information, guys. So what I can say, probably just like a really banal summary is thanks so much. It's like a walk to rethinking and looking back through what happened to contemporary art, like in Indonesia and a bit like some parts of the world. What happened to, from what we learned from Pak Jim in 1993, how contemporary art is being introduced and trying to be defined, and then it got rejected. While at the same time, there's already this growing internationalism in the art scene, like starting in Asia with Japan and Australia. And then afterwards, while in Europe after 1989, after the Cold War, it has already been like this strong entry into what we know as globalization. And then, like what Charles has been describing, it's actually now when the global art and also the global market has been quite the mainstream. I think that actually now in this present time, it's time to
Farah.
Fine. Yes.
Farah, I forgot to say something. Can I?
Oh yes, please do.
Complete,
please
guys.
Do.
In the future, Jakarta Biennale 2021, will not having a symposium like the one that always did in every Biennale all over the world. Now, this symposium in 2021 is becoming like social forum. We are going to have preliminary in every global issues, and at the end of the symposium, we will have resolution to the world. That's it.
Okay.
That's the
That's
activism.
part of a curatorial symposium as activism.
Yes.
Symposium as activism. Okay. So okay. Anyways, just to really quick summary. There are some keywords here, also especially from Mbak Melati and Charles, about that this whole COVID-19 situation actually remind us or bring us all together to try to redefine or raise more, not really always follow what we know as defined as Eurocentric global art that has been shaping contemporary art since the last decade or since the last 20 years. But we look back into diversity and how art can bring more intimate human relations and individual connection, relationships, and localities, and ended with Mbak Dolo with our stance on what we're gonna do with ESOP at ESOP, with the pictorial as activism and how art can actually do.
To answer Melati's question, I don't think we need to focus on human relationship because we are living in a diversity culture. No, that is not the aim of my vision. But the only thing that we can prepare our relationship is to do something that influence at the end the practice of power relationship in the world.
Any comment, Mbak Mel, any comment? Oh, mute.
Oh, so shall I respond directly? Okay.
Yes.
What I mean with the human relations, of course, is a very basic. Without understanding the knowledge within the human relations, we cannot think about how to be with human, to be with the public, to be with others, to see our power relations, the power relation. You know, relasi kuasa ini yang sering dibicarakan. Of course, we have to build basic. If we learn about for example, back in the 15th centuries, like the history of the I forgot the name of the of the Korean letters, the Korean alphabets, how they want to change, you know, the relations between the authority that has been settled according to the Chinese, I think since Yuan and Ming dynasty, to influence the Joseon, the recent now Korea, to connect with the people, to learn, to teach how the people power, you would say, to be connected. And without fixing this looks very simple thing, human relations, we cannot change the space. If activism is about bottom up, and I think that's very important, Budolo.
Yeah, but we are now connecting one another in terms of human relationship. We are now connecting one another because of the COVID. But look, we are now facing the problem how America keep proclaiming that CDC, the Central of Disease Control, is only from them. Why?
It's only for
men.
It's only coming from them.
Or from there.
So this is the power. This is power relationship. I mean, we Indonesian, we should be able to contribute. That we have so many ingredients of being health. That we can contribute the nation to think about not only American is doing what is wrong in the health, what is how to control the disease, a world disease, so-called. This is a power.
Yeah, but I think it is also like more challenging to gain or to ask or to let the people, our people, I would say, Indonesian people, to be confident. Okay, this is what we can do. Every day you drink a ginger tea or everything, you know, like all the mpon or the herbal tea and everything. And I think also to let them know, to spread the knowledge that, okay, that's America, man. Okay, we are here. Okay, so you know, it looks like very simple, practical daily life things, but also like we need to be here and to connect directly with the people, not thinking globally like, okay, we have to protest against the American statement or proclamation about their, like they will, like how do you say, apa sih namanya, dominate the production of the vaccine or whatever,
There should be a movement to stop bombarding the world of their, intellectual rights of what is the disease, how to control it.
Yeah, of course, but it's only certain power in a certain power relation only can express the criticism, to that kind of power relations. We need to see sections of power relations. We need to see with whom, what knowledge, in what knowledge frame, in what capacity, social capacity, or that we not to express just the how do you say, hey, like we don't agree with American, let's do viral things against that knowledge. And so maybe not, but see everything critically. And I think every country has also like their effort to find something against the pandemic. I'm sure, with their own conditions. And at this time, especially this time, we have to stick together in our own relations with our surroundings, in this spot, in this nearest environment. And I think, thinking about power relations is very important, especially when you work in Indonesia, of course, but too far from our reality is also a bit challenging, I think. It includes, this is a small example, what you expressed about the United States with the pandemic vaccination, but in the art, in the general context, I think it is the same.
Gentlemen, Charles or Pak Jim, do you have anything to say about this dialogue? Any comment? Or I'll see, just actually it's more about like two different approaches of like our standpoints on how contemporary art should serve, especially in this like, let's say urgent condition. Or I don't know.
I think one of the questions we maybe that arises out of this is the question of who is contemporary art for. And I think there's a kind of the problem is that I think we want it to be a sort of transformative process in maybe in a political or in an activist way, and I'm really sympathetic to that. At the same time, I think the register that it has in us is much more long term, and that's a kind of frustration. Yeah, the consequences of art, like Jim's Jakarta Biennale in 1993 was completely rejected. And yet, if we look back, it was one of the most important ones in the history of the exhibition because it defined a new position. But it only really became significant about 10 years or more later. And in the same sense, you have, Magician de la Terre, which was a very important exhibition, very difficult exhibition, but in many ways that sort of established this idea of a global umbrella of contemporary art. Again, wasn't really recognized, and for a long time. So whether it's in Jakarta or it's in Paris, there's this same time lag between the way that the institution of contemporary art adapts to changes, and then how that impacts on society, and the sort of will that we have, what makes art wants to have a strong impact at the moment. And I think in a sense that's probably inevitable. Yeah, I think we should want arts to have a strong impact at the moment, but I think we'll also always fail. and that actually the attempting to make it have a strong impact, like we're talking about, is something that actually, without that attempt, we wouldn't achieve anything at all. So we have to be activists, but at the same time, we have to understand that art is a long investment. It's a lifetime investment, I think. I don't know if that helps to try and bring the two positions together.
Thank you, Charles. Pak Jim, any comment?
Yeah. So now I think what Dolo said and all the discussion with Melati is the problem lies, I think I agree with Charles, that the position of Jakarta Biennale up until now, so the international world, to the international world, and of course the idea is how to release a thought nowadays, or a trend, or whatever, that could influence the thinking of the global thinking, or the trend of thinking, those kind of things. Now this is this is then a challenge, and I think if the proposal is not what is it? Is not quite new, or what inviting reaction of those kind of things. No, it will be non-useful, of course, and this is our experiences. But I think that what Dolo said about seeing the history, that's quite important. Now, probably, if we go back to the history, seeing the history, probably that we could find something that not yet not yet developed, or not yet considered up until nowadays. That is actually why is actually the tradition of art making spread out into the world. Now, the reason we have nowadays is that because of the adaptation of the modern world, and the modern world was built in the Western world. And this is then the adaptation of the Western culture, of those kind of things. And then we have a more conclusion that is what is menyesatkan? Conclusion that is what is menyesatkan?
Disorienting,
like that.
Misled.
Yes, misleading. But misleading when they see then the art history as a common ground of the international, of world art, those kind of things, you know. Now, this is misleading because of we can see in 1 century already, since the beginning, that even the art history was not understood outside the Western world, and what they call the modern world, it's complicated to say, and talking about the art is homogeneous, those kind of things. All of those kind of misleading. Now, what we could try see is actually to see back actually what is actually the basics that make the art making tradition spread out through the world. Now, I have just an opinion. Probably I'm writing about it nowadays. Is that actually the influence of the reason why the art making tradition spread out to the world is actually not because of the modern world, not only the modern world. What is more important is actually, in my opinion, is actually the romantic sensibility. It started already. We have to go back to the 18th century and 19th century. When they started, there are romantic sensibility. They're talking about romantic sensibility because they are against the capitalism. They are against the industrial revolution. They are against the power. The power at that time is still held by the monarchy and church. And you have middle-class people who started to go up. And so that's why they call enlightenment. but these people still became part of the power. Now, the romantic sensibility, so you can see that there is a difference between the thoughts of Immanuel Kant and the thoughts of Hegel. Now, this romantic sensibility is related directly to the revolution. So, because you can see at the development of poetry, the development of sastra, what is it, literature. It's not just the visual art. It's not just art, what they call art. It's overall. It started with Goethe, started with Tolstoy, the romantic feelings, and they are more concerned to the people, actually. To the people that started, how work of art started talking about the people. The morality, their morality is talking, sensibility talking about it. So if you see that the word, the art, what is understood nowadays is what they call fine art. It's actually difficult to understand for people outside the world, outside the Europe and America, because art is something. What is it? Visual art, fine art, of art in general, sensibility. What's the relationship between fine art and the aesthetics and the general practice of art? And we have to consider that art activities, the art phenomenon is actually universal in all zaman, in all ages, isn't it? Zaman and all ages. It's universal. It's not just Western. Now, and then what we understand nowadays, up until now, modern art, contemporary art, and please remember that the biennial is promoting the avant-garde of art development nowadays. Of course, they change in contemporary, but it's still biennial, and it's still biennial, showing the avant-garde. And of course, this is related to the linear history believed in 18th century, that everything should be developed. Everything should making new things, develop those kind of things, you know. Meanwhile, they are not talking about the people. They are not talking about the nation or whatever, the people in general, at large. But they're talking about the avant-garde, the development. What should always development? This is then related to liberalism, capitalism, and colonialism, and those kind of things, you know, at that time. Now, it's still behind us a dominant understanding of what is art actually. Of course, there are reactions, there are debating. Now, what is important is, if we go back to the 80s, what we understand that is the counterculture, and you have the postmodernism, you have the post-structuralism, you have the reactions against history and those kind of things. Now, in short, I think that this kind of thinking goes back to the romantic sensibility. They consider the people more, they are against the development, they are against the rationality, they are against the system, the structure, and those kind of things, which nowadays you can see the development in Europe and America, those kind of things. Now, what is related to the COVID-19, actually, the COVID-19, what is important in COVID-19 nowadays is that there is no used to talk about that the healthcare system, the development, the thinking of the people, the standard of education is you can separate between a developing country and what nowadays not popular anymore, the third world. Now, Indonesia is part of that. So you can see that the healthcare, we doubt about the healthcare system, the insurance, health insurance, the bureaucrats, how they should. Now it's a problem. There is no discussion about it. And then the economic problem. Now it's not difficult for countries like Europe and America, and even like Malaysia and Singapore, to conclude or to menjalankan to claim the lockdown. Now because they have money to feed the people, they already have the system, they know everybody and who need the help. Now in Indonesia, for example, the informal sector is undetected nowadays. Now that's the problem. If you do something, the poor people is unidentified. How could you help them? You can put a lot of money to the system. This is a problem like country like Indonesia. It's not just Indonesia. In Asia, you still have those countries. Let's say in Africa, those kind of things. And again, goes back to the people. The problem is goes back to the people. Who will think about the people? So far, I think there are a lot of thinking economical system in seeing how to upgrade the poor people of those kind of things. But seeing back the history, it's not the economical system who helped actually to develop the poor people. No, it's actually the romantic sensibility shown by the artists. And I think this is important. They played an important role to the revolution. Not the first revolution in France, but the second revolution in 1948, when in Europe, in a sudden, in nearly 6 months, the whole Europe was the monarchy. They have a democratic system, those kind of things. Now, it's a matter of seeing back the history is a simple question. Why actually the art or the what is it like that art making tradition spread out in the world? No, it's not adaptation. No, we adopt it because of the same spirit. Because the adaptation of this spirit, romantic spirit, romantic sensibility. Now, in early 20th century, it was related directly to, of course, the independence, the process, kemerdekaan negara-negara, 20th century, the nationalism. Yeah. Now it's already written that the romantic sensibility is related to nationalism at that time and related to the suppression, the social concern, the people, those kind of things. Nationality is mentioned. Thus, there is a direct relationship between nationalism grown in Europe and the nationalism grown in the colonies.
Pak Jim, I apologize, but we're running out of time, so I think that.
Okay, that is my
guys,
suggestion.
I think, yes, but so sorry, but I think we can kind of like elaborate that, and maybe by accepting some comments or anybody who has actually like contribute to the argument of our 4 distinguished speakers.
Are there any other questions, Farah? Maybe we could.
Yes,
do a few
there are.
Comment?
Yeah, there are like actually there are like common questions from all the questions that we receive from the forum. So I tried to kind of like combine them all together in different subjects. So the most popular one is about the transition of medium. I think that maybe we can ask for your opinion about. Yeah, I mean there's a lot of question about this like artists going online and the embracing of digital technology and online the non-physical medium of art, or how art, visual art or contemporary art should develop afterwards with let's say limited physical or spatial practice or environment. Yeah,
non-physical activism.
Not physical activism, okay. Metaphysical activism, that would be nice, Madalo. I don't know, yeah, anybody would like to comment? I think Melati actually can have an interesting response to that question, especially with her background as a performance artist, which probably has something to say about. Yeah, Mbak, unmute, Mbak. Yeah, okay.
Tadi pertanyaannya apa? Sorry. Tadi.
Yeah, because there's a lot of question about the, like artists transitioning from, like physical and spatial medium to digital or online, or what will happen if, let's say, there's a limitation of physical and spatial environment.
Yes, of course. I am a little bit putting a big question about. Sorry, putting a big questions on the live, for example, live streaming of performance. Or because then people has to be careful, I think. Of course, for some projects which help artists, the different things which help artists to survive or to get some, like there is a Saweran project, like there's also from the Budaya Saya, there's a little bit of funding to create a new dance creation from home or something like that, which is creatively interesting. But of course, as an audience, we can switch off, we can turn on, like it's up to you. You are living in the viral world, and but personally, as an artist who is working with the body, and need to have a kind of a live, of course, a live event, live elements where the public also present, not only the performer is present, where the public is present to be with the work. For me, I'm a little bit. I don't do that, so I must say I don't do that, and I critically questioning also the substance of performance art. And for example, or live performance, or the live elements of performing arts.
You need a spectators.
Yeah, like the work is not exist. The work is different. Unless you have like a very skillful, because the public eyes, the audience eyes is represented by the camera you are facing, and the camera cannot think, but the public thinks and interprets, and so there is like a lot of reduction, a lot of reductions of meanings in that. So if you don't consider the camera, then it becomes like every day, like TikTok or like Instagram live things, and then the value of the artwork itself then is also reduced. So the task is, or the challenge is, to understand this frame on a flat screen, then how to transmit the live elements through the lens, through the camera, and it's some people learn for 7 years for that, and it is of course for the collective spirit, not to give up dancing, not to give up anything is nice, but I don't know. For me, it's a bit big questions. So live performances is not so effective, not so efficient to be presented on the screen. Except there is a good documentation, previous work, a documentation that is nicely edited, is proper, and so, and of course it's nice, to see. But live, I don't know. I'm not sure about it. Yeah.
In relation to that question, also in the same context of this of the question of this medium transition, it's also the question of how temporal or permanent this future situation about the audience and the contemporary art or art. Like for example, there are like some questions about will it change like some policies about or the infrastructure of art? Like will it be there be limitations of people, let's say, if they want to see performing arts or performance art, or even go to museums, for example. I don't know. I mean, like those are quite huge question. I don't know, Charles, maybe you have something to say about that. Should we? I mean, like, let's say from your
yeah, I mean, I think that there's an interesting almost contradiction that our bodies are both the thing that are at stake really in this whole question, yeah, because coronavirus attacks the body, and yet through that process of the body becoming vulnerable, so becoming much more felt in a way, much more present in our lives. Yeah, we can't take it for granted because that's what we're protecting. At the same time, we become bodiless, yeah? in that we no longer can meet physically. So there's this sort of contradiction of both the body being most important under this COVID-19 situation, and at the same time kind of disappearing. And I think that this kind of contradiction is maybe built into these technologies as well. That actually what will happen with museums, for instance, as you talk about, is that I think there'll probably be less visitors for quite some time. Yeah, even if we get to a point where there's an opening up and there's still social distancing. I think certainly in the Van Abbe Museum, we're talking about maybe having 20 visitors per hour as a kind of maximum. And that will probably be something that goes on until there's a complete cure for the whole virus. But then also the chances are that another virus will emerge. And we'll go back into these processes in some way or another. Yeah, there's no sort of guarantee that this is the way that we're treating, or another crisis will emerge, which will again threaten our bodies, and again have this contradiction of the body being very vulnerable and important, and at the same time disappearing from the public stage in a way. So I think this in a way will make the visits to the museum. In a certain sense, going back to almost sort of, pre-modern conditions of pilgrimage or whatever, they will become much more precious moments where physically you spend time and planning and organize the possibility to go to a particular place in order to see something. That will become something that's not just part of our regular life experience, but something that becomes quite a precious moment. Like a kind of pilgrimage in a Christian tradition or in the Islam tradition, where you displace yourself to Mecca for this, one lifetime experience, which in a way transforms you.
Some people do it multiple times. Some people do it multiple times.
It's true. But maybe they won't so much anymore. Maybe we're going back to being one time a year, one time a life. So this sort of idea of the physical becoming something precious and much more significant and not taken for granted, I think might give and also I think with being physically present at a performance or whatever might start to give a much greater value because of scarcity, a much greater value to these artistic experiences than we have at the moment. So somehow these will be the memories that will, in a way, sort of interrupt our lives rather than something that's just in our normal daily life. And I suspect that our normal daily lives will be conducted much more on Zoom and whatever other technologies there are than in the past. I certainly feel from working in the museum by distance that many people are getting used to it, and I don't think we're going to give that up, even if we can. I mean, I think people will say, okay, you need to be available much more online. If you're not physically in the building, it doesn't really matter. You can still be available, and our lives will be organized around being available online much more than they were in the past. So I think that those changes will happen in our everyday life, and this will make the art experience something more precious and rarer as well. And that will mean that this sort of huge growth of the art infrastructure and things like that will inevitably decline. We're going to go into a period of degrowth, but that's what we need. We need degrowth in order to find a new balance across the planet. We need less. We need less infrastructure. We need less things. Certainly in the West, we need far less. We have a huge surplus of material, of infrastructure, of organizations. and that surplus is going to go down, and it doesn't mean that our well-being will go down. It doesn't mean that our values of what we feel to be important in our lives will go down, but it means that our physical infrastructure, our material possessions will be less, and I think that's not such a crisis really. But I'm speaking from a very privileged Western situation in talking about that. The rebalancing has to be a rebalancing in which we go down in order for others to come up.
Okay, I think we can give ourselves some extra 15 minutes at least. I would like to also open the floor here. I think later, I think it's Tito. Is it Tito or Mira? Raised hand.
Farah, I really have to go. I have another meeting, I'm afraid. I'm already late.
Okay, I mean like 10 minutes. Or you
5
have to go now, Charles.
Yeah, really, because I'm already
10
minutes late. I'm really sorry.
It's all right. Well, we thank you so much for your time. And I'll show you the recording later.
And Pak Jim, it was nice to see you all.
Thank you so much, Charles.
Good luck with 2021. I hope to come, and I hope it will be great and activist.
We need that.
What Donna said. I'm really looking forward to it.
You have to come, Charles.
Thank you so much, Charles. Yeah.
Bye.
Keep in touch. Bye-bye. Oh, okay. So actually, and not push the button by mistake. Okay. Does anybody wants to comment, or Russell has been there for a while? Maybe can you show up, Russell? Are you there? Maybe he's not there. Okay. Anybody would like to comment or
Masih ada orang bule ya nggak? Masih udah bisa bahasa Indonesia?
There's still. Mbak Amel, would you like to comment? Oh yeah. Okay.
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
Thank you all. That is well and safe and staying home. I just wanted to know whether with this new norm, which is technology and society, are we forced, even artists that doesn't believe in technology, let's say, to be forced into using technology? Like Melati, Melati, who is in performances. Does that mean you have to think in a way of using technology to do your performance? Is that the new norm? I don't know.
I'm not far away from technology. Although my main medium is always the body, so because of that, that's why I do not use in the means like including the live streaming performance. So because I know I don't think that people have to feel forced to do things. No, unless there is like some funding, there's some economical needs or support. Maybe some of course, like dancers, if they can do it, they can do it, like to offer their work online and to get some funding for this. But nobody is forced to do anything actually in this time, and I think it's also a privilege to consider that you do not have to do this because everybody is doing it. So I think the possibility is interesting, but we have been, watching Instagram almost every day, or like everybody is doing TikTok perfectly, and so it's too much, and I think not to compare with like live Instagram or TikTok recording or whatever artwork. Shouldn't it be special a little bit, right? So, but in this time, it becomes a very special, of course, as long as it represents the collective spirit, like the collective spirit to recover or to heal our soul and to be present with our work and so on. It's the only mean that some of us artists want to do, and this is like one of the way they can still distribute their expression of creation. So I think why not? But yeah, but technology, yeah.
And I'm thinking like Tino Segal, who is actually he never allowed people to photograph his performances, you know, and then at this time, you know, I think he has changed. Actually, he has. I think there was I think there was an article how he's using Instagram or something. I don't know, but anyway, but I mean, performance work like that, and we're kind of missing it. We want to see more of like your work. But yeah, I mean, it is interesting time, but it is also a way of doing creative storytelling to people, to the society who, as again, just now, Charles was saying, how in times of sickness, you see bodies, but not now, where there's no, we don't see human. It's actually, there's a global isolation right now. And you see pictures of images of like no one well, maybe not here, but but like in cities that usually are busy of people, and suddenly there's no one. And but this is the time of how to communicate people in a different way. And I guess like suddenly technology becomes so dependent to us. And look at us now. We are all together, but yet in this
boxes. Yeah.
In these boxes, all of you. But you know,
and that makes us happy to see. Like, I'm happy to see you on screen like this. You know, like at least. but you know, if yeah, of course, people might expect, you know, like a live performance, especially now, for example, my exhibitions only about live performances. Why am I not doing online? Hey, wait, everybody is waiting in the whole world. Cannot we wait also? You know, like maybe I will lose some kilos till then also. You know, but anyway, it's also nice to wait a little bit.
Are you still here, Diana? Do you want to? You should get in this.
Yes, please.
Russell is online too.
Russell is in a meeting. Magda, his roommate, just replied.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You.
Oh yeah. Okay. Diana, is Diana here?
Yeah, Diana, I'm here. Where are you?
Okay, but there's a question sent via chat from Intan Rafiza. She's from Balai Seni, Kuala Lumpur. Congrats for the very interesting discussion. My question: if any possibility this time pandemic will create a new body of work in new term or movement in art, maybe something beyond new media tech art or back to basic. I think in terms of medium, we can ask Mbak Dolo to respond. You deal a lot with heavy duty materials in your life, so yeah, the question is, so will there be something new, some new form of art from this pandemic? What do you think?
You talking to me? Can I say something now, Farah?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Listen. I think now we are really facing to a new paradigm of expressing art. The first is we actually acquainted with technology, and second, if you are talking about art that can influence the power of relationship at the end, like effectively, it means that you be able to mobilize notion through technology, through the virtual culture, it's very effective. That you actually, as an artist, can be an activist without showing your work, but you can show your work. You design the strategy, you plan the artistic activism, and that notion can grow as a big influence power, the world power relationship in the world. That's my opinion.
Okay, we really don't have much time left. And I would like to thank for the first two subject of questions, these people. I'm really sorry I cannot mention you all. I'm trying to sum up all the questions into like one subject. Mas Ibrahim, ada dua dari IFA, Leka, Mbak Mela juga tadi yang tentang physical to digital transition. Ada Mas Dwi Setio Wibowo from Art Bali. Ada Hui Kun also from Balai Seni Negara Malaysia. Mas Muhammad Gerli, Safitri dari Bali, Julio Alang dari Foundry Indonesia. Itu tadi terima kasih sekali. I try my best to summarize your questions just to make it more efficient. And we also have another rather popular question is that whether how this pandemic has become kind of like a popular, like everybody's concern, and whether this would be like a common theme for the arts. Like Akmalia Cita from Robana Underground Hub, as it's feared that the global pandemic will last more than a year. Do you think that the pandemic must always be the focus of current and future artistic activities? Because is it the meaning for artists to work on something else which doesn't necessarily respond to this pandemic? And then Mas Bayu Genia from Galeri Nasional Indonesia. Speaking of art and pandemic, from my knowledge, Pak Jim Supangkat, together with his fellow colleague, have been working on an art project as a response to HIV/AIDS in the 1980s. So, yeah, I think we can also ask Pak Jim to reflect on that, as you actually have worked on subject like similar in a similar context like this back then. So it was, I mean, like this is like the kind of like our new AIDS in a way. Maybe Pak Jim has something to say about this COVID-19 as a subject matter of art, of artistic practice.
Yes. Yes, I think that about the COVID-19 I already mentioned a little bit. Now it's more economical condition and the social condition. But my comments is, considering the discussion just happened, is that this is only my concern, that we are discussing too much. We are celebrating too much about the idiom and the medium, and basically the trend. Now, my concern is that is actually we have to think about the content. And then, now it's of course related to the question when I produced the silent word, the work in silent word in Australia, is actually the relationship between the idea, the content, and the use of the medium or idiom. So it's quite important. It's not just thinking about the content and not the idiom, but the connections. Nowadays, we are now, in my opinion, too much thinking about the idiom and the medium, and the content is abandoned. Now, that's not all. If we already have something special as a content, there is still a problem how to use. How to connect the content with the idiom, in the idiom and the development. For example, nowadays, if you're talking about the media idiom, of course, there are more opportunities to to talk, to communicate about the thinking about something, the concern of those kind of things, then the materials or the artistic aspect. So you have to combine something visual and something theatricality within it, and those kind of things, you know. And this is then the possibility how to use the idiom and how to express or to provoke the content, those kind of things. My opinion about that. And it's good that somebody reminds me to my project called Silent Word. It's not just an installation with the people inside it, but the important thing is that I use the comments of the AIDS victims at that time, which is very dark, to the walls of the box, of the installation box. And it was provoking. I was accused by most of the Australians.
You're always accused.
Yeah, indeed. I was accused that they protested. What is it? Because white? Because it's because it started in the white word. Those kind of things, you know. Though even they even not, are you homosexual? So those kind of questions. But in a way, it's provocative. I think it's because of the relationship, because it's not just installation. It's not just a project art, but there is the relationship between it. But it's not important. My concern is that how don't think too much. Yeah? Wasting of time thinking about the medium, about the trend. I'm concerned about the contemporary art. In the beginning, it's just following. You know, too much. What is this? What is that? And what is it? And how I could become a contemporary artist? Those kind of things. Okay, this is my comment then. Probably it's
okay, I think it also relates to what Charles said, like when he said that at the same time the bodies become more important, but at the same time it's also disappearing. So it's kind of like I said, it's interesting time and also an interesting prospects of what will become of contemporary art. I'm really sorry. Yeah. Yes.
I think it's a very Western. So people in Malaysia, in my opinion, they don't care about the body. They are not worried about the death. They just go out. They just those kind of concern. That's seeing that most of the people they are not worried about the disease. They are worried they could die because they could not eat. Now this is kind of a difference. So those kind of things should be considered. We have to represent what is happening. What is the reality in Indonesia? Don't have to be bad. It's just Indonesia. It's a lot of things you can represent and create a work of art. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, guys. I'm really sorry. I hope I summarized the questions from the audience. I mean, it's never enough, but we really ran out of time. First, I would like to allow everyone to disclose their video because we're gonna have a group picture, a new normal group picture.
Better to disclose.
Yes, and and also to see you. Yes. Oh, that's nice. Okay. Oh, Aaron. Oh, hi. Okay. I mean, like, sorry, guys. I mean, like, I haven't been saying hi. Thank you. Also, Tien from Vietnam. Oh my God. Like, there's a lot. Hi, Lucas. Anyway, okay, everybody on, and we can like say cheese. Who does the group picture? Who does the click? Okay, so Boban will do the click. So, you lead. Boban, lead us.
Okay, everybody say cheese. We're gonna do in 3 times because we're gonna have like everybody.
Oh yeah, like 3 slides. Okay.
Okay, just 1.
Oh, what is it? Okay. You got it?
No. Who shared the screen? Someone. Okay. Someone just mistaken sharing the screen.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So, do it again.
Okay, this is second time.
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Okay.
Second slide? Or...
Yeah, this is
Okay.
the final one.
Oh.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you guys, and thanks so much for your time, and also everybody
welcome.
who's doing iftar, buka puasa, selamat menyiapkan berbuka puasa. We thank you, our speakers, my respected seniors, Pak Jim, Mbak Melati, and Mbak Dolo, and everyone here. Thanks so much. Hopefully we can catch up in normal situation, but if not, then for this time being, this will do. Till next time, thank you so much.
Thank you,
Terima
Farah.
kasih Mbak Mel, Pak Jim, Mbak Dolo.
Bye.
Terima kasih.